changes. What do I mean by saying changes? What am I talking about? Like when I mention changes. So, um, when a human being comes to this world, when it borns, there is something that was before, and yeah, you can think of it as strongly believe in reincarnation. It's it's not even the matter of belief; it's like the matter of sensitivity and the experience of perception, like directly. It's not really something I'm thinking about or envisioning. It's just a matter of like feeling this because most people don't, and they don't really have these problems I have. So yeah, I don't want to say that I'm jealous, but yeah, it's just like the starting point to bear in mind to understand the further thought maybe. So um, like we're coming here, um, and we're having some predefined set of features of our characters, and then the life begins. We're getting born, growing, walking through various experiences, and then eventually dying. And the question is, the only real question is, well, at least for me, is what is the difference between the input when we just came into this world and the output when we leave it, or like via dying, obviously. So, how likely did this internal thing that you can call soul or however you want, how it gets changed along the way? Because like if you don't feel this internal thing, then for you the values that you are having in your life would be quite different as opposed to if you do feel this. And the difference within these values leads to a completely different lifestyle and leads to setting up completely different goals, which is quite important because the entire world and its values is operating the way like it doesn't feel this internal thing that you can call soul. And for those people who do feel that, it's a big problem to live in this world because the values are completely the opposite. And the dilemma is whether you like getting socialized and literally committing a suicide just a long term, like 40 years, 50 years of suicide. Yeah. Because what's going to happen by the end of the line? That's the question. Or otherwise, like I do, you just don't give a fuck to the social things side of the life and you just go your very own way. But the matter of like generating some income is rather like I call it like money just falling from the heaven for some unknown reason. Just to emphasize uh, the matter of being random. Like this process is quite random. Although like those people surrounding me don't think this is relevant because of the hard work I've been considering to make that actually happening. But for me, it's still quite pretty random. So when we're talking about this matter of change of what we were when we just got started, like came into these human bodies, and then something is changing along the way, where do we end up? So that's the matter of the internal sensitivity. And this sensitivity is something that I believe that like all of the political regimes are all about um, terrifying this internal sensitivity and trying to make everything to avoid a human being having that sensitivity because it's quite natural for everyone. But because of it being socialized, like what is the matter of being socialized in terms of, like, in terms of this internal sensitivity? That's the matter of killing that sensitivity. So children are quite sensitive, but they're growing and they're just losing this because this internal sensitivity and the natural understanding of what really matters in this world and in this life, where do we come from, where are we going to, and what are we supposed to be doing here? This just gets replaced with some social role models to follow, with no particular explanations of why is not actually needed at all. And it's not needed, obviously, but that's just how the world operates when it just doesn't have this sensitivity. And I don't mind the world. Like, it just goes its very own way. Like, I don't share it. I don't understand it, and I consider this to be absolutely inappropriate for me personally. But we have what we have, so it's nothing to be like arguing about really. So this matter of constantly changing is really natural on its own, and the matter of whether you go in this way, like following this path or not, is just a matter of or how strongly do you follow this way. It's just a matter of how much bits of sensitivity did you manage to keep within inside you? How much did you manage to keep when you've been socialized when you were a kid? And like, how likely do you remember your very origins, like, the very origins of your being? That's the question. Well, obviously, some practices like qigong that I do it really helps to improve, like dropping back, going back, and remembering this better because everything is stored like in the body. It's like a USB flash drive, but just within inside you, within your heart, basically. So you can just go there, connect. You have a driver there. You just can read what was there. Just not the matter of mental understanding, but you just feel it like the experience you've been through that goes beyond this body. That's pretty much the way to talk about it, right? So the natural way for this internal thing that we can call soul, in order to get improved by the time the life is going on, is just a matter of gaining new and new experience. Because that's the very feature of the life in a human body here on Earth. It's just a matter of like getting more and more experience. And by getting this experience, this internal thing called soul gets tested quite extensively. And these tests are intended to reveal the internal qualities of this thing that we call soul. So how likely, how good is that? Like how human is that, or how God is that? It's just different ways talking about this, but how pure is that? It's probably the best ever way to talk about it, how pure is that. So all this, like the matter of getting more and more experience, is just a matter of purification, and that's not some mystified sort of thing. No, it's just a very pure term purification in terms of like the values are getting more and more transparent, like crystals, and you can see them nicely and very good. So the more pure it gets, the better you can see, like like a sunshine. What is that all about? So what is that really all about? So that's what's happening really. So on the other hand, one of the biggest problems when you are coming here on Earth into a human body and trying to live your life, like in some other country, whatever, it doesn't matter really which one in particular. It's all really the same because the world is really getting globalized these days. So the very first and the most essential issue you're encountering is how to coexist with this world. So that's for me personally, since childhood and until now and until my dying day, there's still, and this is now and still will remain the most complicated, the most sophisticated issue. Because the dilemma is very simple. So if you like don't care about the surrounding world, you would just die in there because it just doesn't forgive those who don't care. But in that case, you will be able to save your internal thing called soul. On the other hand, if you don't care about your soul, you can succeed in this life, in this world, like make a career, whatever, whatever considered to be benefits in this world, whatever considered to be good in this world, which is not good in general, it's just good from the perspective of this world and the values this world is widespread. That's very important, like tiny little detail to mention, right? So in that case, the price we are paying for that, for those benefits, for those values that world is offering us, is actually losing this internal thing. So, like losing in terms of no longer being able to sense it, no longer being to feel it, forgetting your very own being and just turning into a social, like I don't know, social guy, yeah, someone like that, and how this happens. This happens by shifting the values. So once those values that the world is offering are starting being like, once you starting to truly believe in those values, that's it. That's the suicide. It just takes like 30, 40 years more to live until your body would actually die. But internally you're already dead. So once you've shifted those values internally from like sensitivity to the benefits, having the benefits in this world, that game is over. So nothing really to talk about anymore. But quite interestingly, that in order to actually survive in this world, um, it's quite impossible to like uh, bear on those values, on those true internal values of sensitivity, and still like survive in this world. That's something that is really impossible, and I'll try to explain why. Because you just think about. I don't really want to bring any. Like, I don't want to be mystifying things. On the contrary, for me personally, this is very scientific. It's just the science that we know is just favors the certain values again. So all the science we have is just values, just favors the certain values, and that's not the only science basically, because it's just a matter of scientific approach where we are relying on experimenting, right? So experimenting and figuring out the truth on our own, based on our own experience, deeds, actions, like something that we can check on our own. That's really important, like thing to mention in regards to the approach in general. So um, how this world operates. So you just consider. Well, I don't want to say this word career, but let's say the career. So it's not the career, but career. I'm not probably pronouncing this a bit wrong. So like your job that you're doing for a long time turns into career. So just improving, growing, and so on. It's a very popular thing these days. So how that works and what's the major requisite to succeed in that? And I will tell you what is the major requisite. The major requisite is not changing. It might sound seemingly fine and okay, but later we will see that it's not okay. It's absolute disaster. But anyway, just to illustrate how this works. So, for instance, I can just bring some examples from my very own experience. And by the way, this principles of not changing to get successful and get paid, it's not only about the certain skills like programming that I did a lot, or making YouTube content is really similar sort of thing, because this works exactly the same, even more. The inertia behind YouTube's like nature, because again, YouTube works on this exact values, like the entire world operates by. So it's really the same. So like I was doing this web scraping, I was doing this professional. I was making money doing only web scraping for a few years. I was doing content related to web scraping, which served two purposes. It was serving the purpose of actually like monetizing the content on the one hand, but even the bigger reason behind this was like just the self-advertising to tell people that I'm an expert in this niche, this specific field. So this is my specialty. You can ask me to do some freelance jobs for you, and I can do this. So that was the like, sick and tired of that at the moment, and this is still getting me, and this is really annoying. But I can do absolutely nothing to that, because again, like, unfortunately, since everyone needs to pay his bills, nothing pretty much to do with it. But anyway, it's not the major reason here. So um, the matter of not changing. So like I don't quite remember the name of the channel. Mm, I swear, if I did, I would have mentioned that. But there was a channel that was created somewhere around when I started my channel. Well, not really when I started my channel, but when I started doing web scraping videos. So there was a guy on the internet somewhere on YouTube who was doing web scraping videos as well. And then, like we had about equal number of subscribers. And then I changed. So I started doing something else. That's a different topic. The story. We'll cover this a bit later. So I did web scraping like for about I don't know 2 3 years, not quite sure. But then I just stopped that and never came back. So, well, I did came back, but like just once randomly, like because I need money urgently. So it's not something that I would consider if the war in Ukraine didn't stop. Let's say so it's still an excuse, but anyway. So, but that guy, he started with web scraping, and I had around 2,000 subscribers by that time, and he had around equal number of subscribers. So the content, the topics were quite similar. And then I shifted, and he until up until now he's still doing that web scraping. Now he has around 10,000 subscribers and much more views than I do because his community is absolutely dedicated to web scraping, and there is nothing more about web scraping on his channel. And for those who's doing web scraping, for those who's learning how to do this, so like how to get this specialty, that's normal, that's okay. But the problem is that for me, there was just a stage. Like in games, you have a stage one, stage two. So it was just one stage, and I just completed this stage, and I'm moving further on. But uh, he decided to keep sticking to this because this was beneficial. And if I did the same, I would not probably also have like 10,000 subscribers absolutely dedicated to web scraping. And if I continue doing my $50 per hour web scraping projects all over the world, scraping real estate properties like I did for years, probably like my financial situation would have been much better than it is now. But the question is like the price behind it. So like just I don't know. It's really hard to evaluate this from objectively because this is really like subjective feeling. Because when like exactly the same sort of activity when you're just starting this, when you need to get that experience, when you need to walk through that, that's getting extremely beneficial, really, and it helps you develop in your own self. But then when it gets to its very end, and you walk through this stage, you completed this stage, right? And then you need to go further on. If your internal value is to develop this internal thing we call soul, right? But if you don't do that, and if you just keep staying there and keep developing this, in that case, you're starting to get rich. So you just feel this dilemma, right? So not even the matter of being rich, the matter of like having a stable income, I would say, because when you're not yet an expert and you're just learning, you are not still that confident. You do earn something already, but that's more likely like sometimes it happens, sometimes it's not. It's not yet stable. You can't rely on this like heavily. But when you're getting this expertise, when you're getting your name in the certain circles, when you're having the client base, you already have like everything. Like people are learning in college for this particular reason. So why do they learn in college? They go to college to get a specialty to land a job somewhere to have the stable income for years, right? So seems like it makes sense. Well, not for me, because for me, that sort of scenario is leading to nowhere because you're just getting stuck in the certain state and never change. And yes, the result would be that you would be having like some stability in life. Well, I would call it like uh, committing a very stable suicide that would be lasting for like 30, 40 years, depending how lucky you are. And then like you are dying and you say, yes, I had this job, I had this career, I was making like $100,000 per year or more, and I had some properties, I have some cars, girls, and so on. But the question is, what has changed? Like, you came to this world and now you're dying, right? So, what has changed? That's the question. And quite interestingly, like if you don't remember how you've been dying for many times earlier, you are not thinking about this because you're like, okay, I don't know how this feels to die. I'm just afraid of this, but you don't quite understand how this feels. You don't feel that pain that you would be feeling for wasting your entire life just because of having those values being shifted from the values of developing this internal thinking. So, to having some static benefit over the years, to keep maintaining some material values that once you are dead are no longer on the cards. That's the very question. And now, interestingly, what's happening? So, this has been happening to me through my entire life, really many times. I really had many jobs that were well paid, and I could have done those jobs for literally for my entire life. And those types of jobs were vastly different. It wasn't programming always. It was some other jobs like working with your hands earlier when I was younger. It doesn't matter what exactly. So the idea is that this sort of, well, I personally call it temptations because it's really tempting. You just once get in a specialty, once land in a job, but not even once. So if you just sticking to your specialty, you may change the jobs like 3 years, once 3 years, or faster, or like in 3 years, in 5 years, in 1 year. It doesn't matter how fast is that happening. So you're free to change those jobs, but you're sticking to the specialty, right? And even if you change the specialty, like how many times can you change the specialty? Like once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Well, it's not an infinite one. So you change this, and yeah, and you just keep sticking to this for years. That's how it works. That's how we stay enslaved, basically. Because while sticking to the specialty, we are enslaved because we are serving those values. This entire mechanism how the world operates and what for and why, we are tied up to serving this particular values, and we are contributing to this our own lives, which when we are running out of our lives, we're no longer clear, like, what did we spend our entire life for? Because we've spent our lives to contribute to the values that doesn't make any sense when we're dying. So it only makes sense when we're living. When we're dying, it turns out that completely the opposite values are actually has been on the cards all of this time, but we didn't quite uh, spend a single day trying to improve those values, trying to serve those values that really matters. That's the problem. And now, just to talk a bit more about this inertia, which YouTube introduces probably the most, like occupying some niche, like I did with web scraping, for instance. And this gets like a couple of thousands of subscribers. And then I'm shifting to somewhat a completely different topic that those guys who were interested in web scraping would like 99 and 9 in period would not be interested in watching. Like for instance, retro programming on the computer from the late 70s Q1, the first Commodore computer, literally. It's like 1K of RAM. So what can you do with only 1K of RAM? Programming machine codes, no programming languages. That was extremely interesting for me because by that time, it was another like big part of my life. Like I started that, I was interested, I was doing something because that was something required by the internal changes that were going on within inside me. And I was really interested doing this. And again, unlike the web scraping, even the best ever in the world expertise in that particular retro programming doesn't really bring you anything, literally, because no one is interested. Like, everyone is interested to buy a like expensive video card and playing the games with 200 FPS, no matter what the game is all about. Just see those 200 FPS, and you're fucking happy after. Yeah, that's how the world operates, unfortunately. But anyway, I started that another thing, and I was doing this for quite a bit of time, and another layer of subscribers has joined. And also, I did something different. I was doing some gaming, like Reincarnation engine, both in Python and JavaScript. That brought some another layer of subscribers interested in probably, I believe, game development and graphics technology. So different, picking up different, absolutely different niches, which doesn't seem to make any sense in cooperation with each other. But that made perfect sense to me because for me, like they were like linked list in C. They were just like one points to the beginning of the second one, and so on and so forth. So just really like linked list connected. So for me, it's just no matter between this web scraping, then like retro coding, then game development, then I started chess programming. That was the completely separated project and even channel. I still have it. So like because I didn't understand that like I was thinking like I would be doing chess programming forever. Like I did 95 videos of like programming your own Bitboard chess engine in C. A couple more series is like about half of that of making an array-based node generator. Chess engines in various languages like JavaScript or Python. Some hacks to how to cheat on websites, like how to make OpenCV object recognition, like snapshotting the board and then just turning this into the internal representation of the chessboard position, and then run an engine and try to make a best move that imitating the mouse move and the click on some part of the board or of the screen to make the engine literally playing online without having an account or something, but just directly, like you have was a human who was doing this, has been doing this. So lots of things. And again, this was also layered in terms of subscribers. So this topic brings this bunch of subscribers. This topic brings another one, and so on and so on. And it's quite funny to see like years after when it comes to the topic that I haven't been maintaining for about like a couple of years already. And someone who guy says, "Oh, this is so cool! How can I do that? How can I do that?" And it's like I'm so far away from that point when I was up with that sort of thing I've been making a video about back in the day a couple of years ago. And he was asking me like how to do that, so I'm forced to drop back there. Like don't give a fuck to the current change that I need to do. And I just drop back there to answer that and like go back in time and see what happens there. Well, I do that because like people are probably is the bigger values as opposed to whatever other, because if we don't have people, this like living in this world doesn't make any sense at all. So no matter that I'm like really annoyed by dropping back to those topics that I don't really hate. I don't hate them because the topics are bad. I hate them because for me that's just the step back. But on the other hand, when you see like people like walking those through those exact same steps you've been walking through, and it's not bad to actually drop back and try to help them. It's possible. Yeah, so why not? Probably that makes sense. So I'm kind of rethinking this like recently for the last time. But anyway, this sort of idea. So like if I want the stability, and in this case, I should just stop on like okay. So from now on, no matter what, I will be doing this, right? And then if I do this constantly and never change, then finally we get another layer of subscribers. And if I keep sticking to this, it would be growing the community, and I can either earn by monetizing my content, or if I'm meanwhile doing something like that is makes use to people, like something I can sell, like I'll do as a freelance job, so I can do this as well. All good, right? But in that case, again, we're coming to the very essential question, to the very initial question, like, what's my internal price for this, right? So if I do this, I'm no longer able to develop my internal being anymore. And if I don't have that option, then why the fuck do I ever have to live in this world? I have no reason to live in this world if I'm stuck in exactly the same state. And that's the question that it doesn't really have any like answer to this. Because the entire world, no matter what the politics, no matter what the regime, no matter whatever, it forces you keep sticking to what you've chosen once. You just see like the entire educational system. You're a kid and you're forced to decide who the fuck are you supposed to become in this world. No, that's the biggest violence, I believe. Because really, like, how dare you to fix this? Like, who are you supposed to be? We're guests here. We came here, and we will definitely leave faster, sooner or later. But we will leave, and we will never remember. Most of us would never remember this period of time we've been living here on Earth, right? And by the way, reincarnation, right? So the reason why it happens all over and over again, because if you shift the values and you live in your entire life serving the false values, and then you're dying, and then while you're dying, you do realize like, what the hell is going on? Like, I've spent my entire life, I wasted my entire life for the false values, and you're dying with this stuff, right? And then since you didn't quite change, there is no particular reason to put you into somewhat a new environment. So you just born again here on Earth, everything goes just again and again. It's just a for loop. Or I would better say it's not a, it would be good if the reincarnation was kind of for loop. It's a while loop. While true, right? While true, you're born over and over again. And every time the experience is exactly the same as before. And that's it. So, United, uh, it's next to impossible to break out from this loop, from this infinite loop. But there is a sort of hint because it's this loop says, like in Indian, in Sanskrit, they call it samsara, the wheel of reincarnation. Well, that person observed this literally as a wild true, and then this curly races and your lives that just iterating over and over again. The only thing is changing from one life to another is the number of the variables storing the count for the number of iterations. You just like born and die for 1,000,000,000 times over and over again. Only the count variable is changing. The rest is absolutely the same. And probably if you're running out of the integer bits, running out of the bits that an integer 32-bit integer is capable of storing, just wraps around and you start all over again. It's the same. So while true. So this condition true makes this loop happening over and over again. So what can we do to like stop this? This condition should no longer be true. It should stop being false. In this case, we just break out of the loop instantly. Just break out of the loop and that's it. We're no longer within the loop. How to do that, you might be wondering? Well, shift the values. Like drop back to the initial values and remembering about the changes that we are here only to grow, to get an experience, but not to stuck here, not to believe in what they're trying to tell us we should believe. Not even no one is telling nothing. It's just similarly it should be like that, right? You just need to get good education, you need to get a good job, you need to get a good one. You have to. You're fucking forced doing this and you have no other choice. That's something terrifying. That terrifies me personally. But this is quite clear, and this is something I've been realizing more or less during my entire life. Even when I was a kid, I still did realize it. I just didn't know that smart words, and I did speak English back in the day, so I couldn't really explain this that nicely as I can do now. But I had that internal feeling of something goes horribly wrong in this world. Because like, people told me that something's going horribly wrong with me. I said, I just don't give a fuck to that. Something's going horribly wrong with the world, not with me. Because like, if the entire world is going to hell, like it's the problem of the world. It's not mine. I wasn't signed up for that. Right? So why the heck should I go into hell with the entire world if they don't want to? But yeah, this arises quite a significant problem because constantly changing and constantly making only those works, those jobs, and only doing the content that represents particular your particular period where you currently are, what you're currently doing, the current development state. We're talking using the terms of the software development ecosystem. So the current development state, right? So if I'm making content about my current development state, it's just not enough to because of the inertia of YouTube and the values. It's not like I'm making the videos and then like everyone who's interested is watching this. So those interested may watch this in 10 years, maybe later, maybe don't watch it at all, right? And say I'm just making some services. So those interested might find this like a couple of years later when I'm no longer doing this, and they're really surprised. Like, wow, you're no longer doing this. You're doing this so cool. You're a real expert. You're doing this so nicely. I'm ready to pay you like twice as much as this really costs because I don't want to hire someone unknown guy on Upwork. I want you, the blogger who I know and I'm subscribed to, making this exact job for me. So please do it for me. And I say like, I'm no longer doing this. Why? They don't understand. Sometimes they still do. Mostly, yes, just because they don't have money and they need to pay the bills. They just have no other fucking choice but to make that damn freelance job that I hate really a lot. But yeah, that's not from very good living. But the real question I'm really wondering about is not really to change or not to change, because that the answer to that question is obvious to me. Definitely to change, because otherwise living in this world and this earth and this human body doesn't make any sense. So definitely to change. But when you're changing, how the fuck can I leave the way so that making these services and making sort of the jobs where I'm picking new ones every single time, because otherwise I will just stuck with what I had previously. So how the fuck am I supposed to make money for living when I have no other choice but like it's always been a beginner. Yes. So like earning only like being a beginner, because like once I'm becoming an expert in a certain niche, no matter what, I'm just no longer interested in that niche. So once I become an expert, I can stably making money within this niche, but that's the same as committing the suicide for the next 40 years. So I'm just dropping this and going further on, right? But then I'm beginner again. Like now, like I'm a chess programming channel since I don't want to make programming tutorials anymore. But meanwhile, I really got interested in playing the game of Go. It's an incredible game. And I've started making some content about Go. Like outplaying GNU Go computer, which is not based on neural networks, but some just handcrafted algorithm, which is quite easily to beat. So yeah, I'm a complete beginner in Go. And 10 years later, someone would find that video and would ask me. And I would still be living in 10 years. I would probably be doing something else. Not because of being unfocused, or not because of just dropping every single thing that I try. No, that's because most likely by that time, all I took from this game, all I could have taken, would just end up. Just I would then be considering something else, because I'm not sticking to certain practice here, because I'm using the practices all around the world to benefit to benefit my internal nature, to serve the purpose of growing, so that when I would be dying, instead of being terrified, I would be observing like what was the starting point and where I am now. And if this is significant enough, like literally all you could do within this life, that would be just satisfying. And in this case, you are dying. It's painful, right? But next time, you're already living, you're kind of breaking out of this wild truth. You're getting into another one, right? That's another unfortunate story. But if you're realized, like, if you're making mistakes, just don't do exactly the same mistakes as someone famous guy said. You just try to do new mistakes every single time because that's what leading you to the development. So yeah, really lots of questions and no answers in particular. See you later and cheers.